Welcome everyone. Today is class number 4 of our Electroculture series. We're going to be focusing on basalt and paramagnetism, and we have here with us, of course, Yannick Van Doorne. Yannick, welcome.
Hello, Angela. Hello, everybody. So today it's about basalt and paramagnetism. It's a whole topic more and more people know about, and so we will look at basalt and paramagnetism in the electroculture viewpoint, because you can also look at basalt at the chemical characteristics, but that's not what is of interest now. So basalt is coming from volcanoes, old volcanoes, so we will see that. Yeah, well, I will continue. So we will look at the history. We will look at some scientific theory and working principles, and how and when to apply it, how to use it in our gardens and fields. And I will show you some testimonials and results that you can get with basalt. In the timeline, yes, we have basalt is coming from volcanoes, like I told. That's as old as our planet Earth. So it's probably, in my eyes, one of the main sources of fertility not only basalt, but everything that comes from the volcanoes. It's one of the main sources of fertility in our world or planet Earth. We see that in the whole world, that the islands where you have or the areas where you have a lot of volcanoes are mostly also very fertile areas, fertile fields and places. And this is not by hazard. It's because of the ashes also of the volcano, of the lava, of the basalt also. And then in the time in the year 50s, 60s, it was quite widely used in agriculture, but with time it was like put away and forgotten, and replaced by chemicals and chemical fertilizers and other way of fertilization, because of a lot of reasons. Probably one of the reasons is that almost nobody really knows how it increases fertility, because it doesn't match in the classic theories of fertility that we learn at school. So when people don't really understand how it works, then they lose interest and motivation, and then bit by bit it's not used anymore. It's still known in the organic movements, in the organic farming movements. There they know about the importance of basalt, but it's a very little movement if we see at the whole agriculture industry and farming. The organic movement is only a few percent of all the farmers, so it's not much people that know about. And even in the organic movement, there's not so much people knowing about this. But it still survives, and there are still quarries that sell basalt for agriculture, because there are always still farmers using basalt to increase their fertility, almost all over the world, and also in Canada, in the US, in France, in Switzerland, in Germany, in Belgium. So in Holland too, it's still known. There are still addresses where you can buy basalt. You have to search a little bit, but it's possible to find. And also what helped a lot is the invention of Phil Callahan, the PCSM. It's the picture you see on top. It's a device where you can measure the paramagnetism effect of basalt. I will explain a little bit more about this in this presentation. So like I told already in some presentations, but it's interesting to really be conscious of that. We live on planet Earth that is a gigantic magnetic field, a gigantic magnet. So we live in that magnetic field, and basalt will have an interaction with that magnetic field. And that is what is really interesting to basalt. It will act like little antennas, like little magnets with the magnetic field. It's like you will amplify locally the magnetic field, but it's like it works a little bit like a radio. You will really receive. It will become it will come in resonance with the Earth magnetic field, and you will receive all the subtle energies and also the energies that you can measure, the magnetic energies of our planet Earth, of the Earth magnetic field. And this is shown to be very effective to help the development of the microorganism in the soil and also plant growth. It's like a kind of energy. It's like you have the energy from the sun, the light, while you have also a kind of paramagnetic energy, and maybe also other kind of energies that are still mysterious, because there's a lot of mysteries around basalt, like we will see. But there are some characteristics that are very well known, like paramagnetism. Basalt is also composed of a lot of silicium. Silicium is also well known in the organic movements, and would be interesting to know also for all farmers, also outside the organic movements. It's more and more used also in agriculture. And silicium is like a quartz. A quartz is also silicium. And quartz vibrates with very high frequencies, so more cosmic frequencies. So electromagnetic waves of very high frequencies, like a light. And you have also the piezoelectric effect with silicium. When it's under pressure, an example, if it's in the soil and you have the weight of other minerals above it, it's under pressure, it will create a piezoelectric effect. So it will create electricity. It will transform the pressure, the energy of the pressure, it will transform it in electricity that it will radiate around. Also with light, when the light will shine on silicium, it will also create a kind of piezoelectric effect like you have in solar panels. You have that. Well, when you have sand or certain quartz crystals or on your soil, you will also have that. It's like a solar panel. It will transform also in kind of electricity. So that I will say that's more high frequencies. It's more influence of cosmic energy. If we would put it in a kind of group or kind of energy, we would call that a cosmic energy. And basalt is also made of iron oxides and also other minerals that are paramagnetic. And that's completely different than silicium. Paramagnetic particles will will more be in resonance with the magnetic field of the Earth that is more Earth energy in comparison with cosmic energy, and with low frequencies like the Schumann waves, for example. Schumann waves are very low frequency radio waves of the Earth that we have all around the Earth continuously. It's like a kind of heartbeat of the Earth. Well, what is really interesting in basalt, in my eyes, it's that effect, it's the paramagnetic effect. And this was discovered by, or what we know about this, it's from Phil Callahan. So we will talk a little later about him. And so basalt will help to create like antennas locally with the cosmic energy and the Earth energy, the magnetic Earth energy, and the Schumann waves. You have in reality like three main energies. So high frequencies because of the silicium. But then you can also bring silicium in other ways. That's not what is really most interesting in basalt. And you have the paramagnetic particles that will bring you low frequency radio waves, the Schumann waves, so like will act as a radio. And you have also the paramagnetic effect that will make that it will be in resonance with the Earth magnetic field. That is also something different than the radio waves. It's really a static magnetic field that will be amplified where you have the basalt rocks or powder or sand particles. You can also have that with lava rocks or with some ashes from volcanoes. You can also have all those effects. But the most known to help agriculture is about paramagnetism is basalt. Even if you have also some lavas and ashes that can be also very paramagnetic. So we continue. Yes, I told about the Schumann waves. The Schumann waves you can find all over the Earth. They are generated every time you have to thunder. So the thunder strikes, lightning, is really a complex phenomenon that where we could make a presentation only about lightning. and everybody is conscious when it rains during a storm or thunder, that all the grass and the vegetables become a lot greener in a few hours or minutes even. Even if it doesn't rain very much, it becomes very rapidly greener. So it's known to really increase fertility. In thunderstrikes, you have like an electrical and a high voltage electrical discharge that creates those radio waves. It's like you hammer on the drum. Well, the drum is planet Earth, and then it creates like a vibration, an electromagnetic vibration that is really specific to the size of the Earth. I tell that because you can calculate, when you know the size of the Earth, the speed of light or speed of electromagnetic waves, you can calculate the Schumann waves in theory, and it corresponds with the Schumann waves that you measure then in reality. And so it also explains in a certain way, or it's also a proof in a certain way, that planet Earth is like a ball. It's not flat Earth like some people or some theories are telling about. There are a lot of theories coming out that are new, And maybe we have to question also why those theories coming out to occupy our minds, where there are more important things in life to do, I think. Well, that's to my response to that. And so the Schumann waves are really, really very, very interesting in regarding to the effects on life on Earth. It's very important. And it's not enough known. And basalt will help us to come in resonance or to amplify the Schumann waves also around. I'm convinced about that. It comes. It's also what inspires the work of Phil Callahan that did also research about all those things. So we continue. Yes, and Schumann waves, it's not only one frequency. You have the main frequency, 7.83 hertz, and you have also a second one, 14.1 and 20.3, and you have even 4 others that are main frequencies. Important harmonics. So when people say, the Schumann frequencies is become higher, that's a phrase that doesn't mean anything, because in reality, what science shows us and measurement device shows us is that you have different Schumann frequencies and that they fluctuate. So that is a reality. So sometimes it becomes higher, sometimes lower. It fluctuates. You have the frequencies that fluctuates, and you have also the intensity that fluctuates. So you have different effects like this. And then you have also the electromagnetic pollution that makes that we have that living organisms have difficulty to become in resonance with Schumann frequencies, because you have all that electromagnetic pollution that has a lot higher intensity than the Schumann frequencies, and then it's like it hides the Schumann frequencies, and our natural antennas have difficulty to come in resonance, and then it can evolve to health problems also on plant growth. It can reduce plant growth all around, or make them more harmful or less resistant to disease. So that is what we see also. Even if the electromagnetic pollution is in whole other frequency spectrum, it's more higher frequencies, the frequencies of our phones, and so it's around 1 million hertz. And the Schumann frequencies is only a few hertz. It's like 14 hertz, 7 hertz. But it's still, the pollution still really pollute and make a problem. Yeah, we can continue. It's also in resonance with our brainwave activity. So it's interesting that somebody told that Phil Callahan in his last book advised to eat basalt. So maybe we become, our bodies maybe will become more in resonance. It's like we eat the radios to hear the radio. Maybe it can be interesting. But we have to be sure that it's good basalt without heavy metals or problems like this that can happen too. But it's interesting because our brainwave activity is in the same spectrum as the Schumann resonances. So it's very interesting. It's around 5 to 20 hertz, our brainwave activity. If we are like very awake, you have the beta frequencies that are like around 10, 14 hertz, if I remember. And when you have you are in theta frequencies, it's a theta condition of our brainwave. It's like when we are sleeping, or between sleep and awaken, like very relaxed and dreaming. Then we are really in the Schumann frequencies, in around 7.83 hertz and around. And what some discovered, what we can read in some books, like in one book, I think from Patrick Flanagan about the pyramids, for example, is that when we go in a pyramid, you have also an interaction with the magnetic field of the Earth, and it increases directly the Schumann resonance in our brainwave activity. So that's very interesting. You have also, yes, what is also interesting about pyramids, it's when we look at the crystal structure. That's not in my presentation, what I tell you now. But if we look at the crystal structure of magnetite, that is a very paramagnetic, or that is mostly very paramagnetic, well, the crystal structure is like all little pyramids, for example. It's very interesting. Huh? So now we go back to the presentation. So it's interesting that what helps plant growth, like those Schumann frequencies, also help humans. It's like it put us more in resonance with the earth energies. It put our brain more in resonance with. So probably we will have better thoughts. Some people are talking about more telepathic influences or effects. It's very interesting around in places where you have a lot of those Schumann frequencies. Also, people that are healers have mostly also more intensity of the Schumann frequency in their brainwave activity. So it's not by hazard, probably. It's like we are more connected to the earth around us, to the knowledge, we can have better ideas. We are really, I call it earth radio connection. It's like we connect to the earth radio, and that's the best radio ever. I think so. And we put everything in connection, so it's also maybe a better communication than with, or intuitive communication also with the animals, with plants, with, if you believe in possible communication between our consciousness of plants and consciousness of animals. I believe that they have also consciousness because of a lot of experience I did. Well, I think the Schumann resonance, basalt, round towers, a lot of electroculture techniques can help to that. It's like tools that will increase all those energies that help us to communicate on planet Earth with the environment and the natural energies. So here you see two main books from Philip Callahan. You have the book Paramagnetism, Rediscovering Nature's Secret Force of Growth. It's really interesting books. He writes really like it's like a story of his discoveries. It's and also about some science around this. So it's very easy to read and very interesting. And everybody can learn a lot in those books. You don't need to be an engineer to understand what he is writing. It's really also like like a story, like a poem in French, or like a story. And Then you have the book Ancient Mysteries, Modern Visions, The Magnetic Life of Agriculture. So there he talks really about the magnetic life of agriculture. And he connects basalt with the pyramids too, with paramagnetism, with also places where you have high spiritual activity, or even appearances of the Virgin Mary, or in most cases also very paramagnetic places, like in Lourdes in France, that is known all over the world, I think. And also close to where I live, you have the Mont Saint-Odile. It's a mount that is just above a quarry of basalt, where you have a monastery and where you have the story of Saint-Odile. It's very interesting and very strange. And probably we would need to ask to Phil Callahan, but in his last book, on the front page of his last book, he shows a little statue of the Virgin Mary that is filled with paramagnetic rock. So the mysteries around basalt and paramagnetism brought him to more spiritual considerations of life, and me too. All my work about electroculture brought me also to more spirituality, because it's all connected in a certain way. And then you have the other book, Geotherapy, that you see on the right, Innovative Methods for Soil Fertility Restorations. And there that's a more scientific book. It's really all about scientific research. It's more complicated to read, but it's very interesting for people that really want to know about scientific research that has been done about rocks and rock powders and different, and also basalt. And they talk a little bit about paramagnetism, but they talk a lot about basalt and how they see that it really increase a lot soil fertility, even if they don't really know how, because they don't speak much about paramagnetism. But they observe really a big increase in soil fertility, and also when you increase soil fertility, you increase soil life, and so you increase carbon sequestration that is of interest for the scientific community today, because they speak about the problems of the climate and all the measures they want to take to increase the capture of carbon dioxide, and so it's interesting to see that even in official science they begin to have interest in basalt because of that aspect, that it increase really a lot life in the earth. And so that's also what we want, and what we like to have in our gardens and fields. You have also other books like more scientific. On the right, you have The Magnetic Pulse of Life. It's very scientific book, very interesting, that collects hundreds of scientific articles that are directly related to electroculture and magnetoculture, about the effect of the electrical fields and magnetic field of the earth on the life. You have a chapter about animals, you have a chapter about plant life, you have a chapter about microorganisms, and always illustrated with tons and tons of scientific articles. So it's really, when people ask, there is no proof about electroculture, give me a proof, then you send them the title of this book and then they can read during 6 months only scientific papers about the effect of magnetism and electrical field on life. And then they cannot say anymore that there is no influence. There is a big, big influence. In the middle, you see the last book of Callahan, with where you see the statue of Virgin Mary. So it's like science. There is some sentence like this, that if you go really profound in science, then you touch the mysteries, and it brings you closer to God in a certain way. So science and spirituality, it's really not opposed. One can bring you to the other, because when you believe in God, you are very interested in how life functions, about how works the miracle of life. And so by understanding, it's like you understand a little bit more God, also what he do, by doing research about life, how it works. And the opposite is true too. When you really, if you don't believe God and you really search about life, how it works in the scientific way, you touches to the mysteries, and you have always new questions and new mysteries that makes you believe that there is some intelligence behind it, that is really a lot more intelligent than us. Because we cannot create a life like that intelligence by our own power. You have also the book Bread from Stones. The title is very short, and also with a foreword, I think, afterword from Phil Callahan. And the book The Secret Life of the Soil in English, La vie secrète du sol in French. It's really a very interesting book. It's through that book that I discovered about Phil Callahan and the first time, and the round towers too. It's really an amazing book, a wonderful book. It's one of the first books, if you are interested in alternative techniques in agriculture, is really the book you must read, that everybody need to have. So we continue. Here, that's really a scientific article that is a summary of a lot of other scientific articles that I really advise that you can find easily on internet. So the title, Magnetic Field Effects on Plant Growth Development and Evolution. So I show a lot that article because it's really very clear. Everybody can understand that article. When they write GMF, that means geomagnetic field, that's what you see. And so they do a review of all kinds of scientific articles where they increased a little bit the magnetic field of the earth, of the soil or the environment, and then they looked how the plants react or how they grow. And when they increased a little bit, every time the plants grow better or more healthy or less or more resistant to disease, or make a bigger root growth or bigger leaves or whatever. Always in a more, they grow always in a more positive way. And when they decrease, when they reduce the magnetic field artificially, I don't know exactly how they did, but you can find that in the scientific articles. Well, every time they did experiments when they compared to the natural magnetic field and with decreased magnetic field, every time it brings reduced growth or plants that are less strong against disease, and so less resistant. And so that's also what we see in nature around us, in the environment. And Basalt will basalt will really help to increase the magnetic field, and you can measure that with devices that it really increase the magnetic field. So here, for example, here you see exposure to magnetic field values lower than those of the GMF, geomagnetic field. Well, an example, the second line, allium cepa, it's kind of leek or onion, root and shoot, they measured, decreased in the cell number with enhanced DNA content. So there are less cells. So it's not good to have less cells in most cases. So it's very, yes, it's science. It's really, so an example, but then sometimes you have to really, like lipidium sativum, negative gravitropism. So it's that the plant grow less, or the roots grow less to beneath. They grow less. Sometimes the words or the language of science, it's sometimes a little bit complicated. They like to use complicated terms to say simple things to make it more scientific. Like here, Hordeum vulgare decreased in fresh weight, but with Helianthus annus, it's the sunflower increased in fresh weight. I don't know why, that's an exception. But what we see in most cases, it's when you have more basalt, they like it, they grow a lot better. So sometimes that is just a summary in 1 or 2 words of each article, but if you want really to know more details, you need to look at the source of the article that you see in the column at the right. So we continue. And you see that the articles are mostly, it's all names from Asia, Chinese. You see, it's all very, it's not much names that do research on those things in the Western world. It's more in the Asian world, because there they are, in most cases, more interested in all that kind of subtle energies, magnetism, electricity, and the influence on life. In our Western world, they are still stuck in the material way of life, and they want to explain everything with chemicals and things like that. But in those countries, they are more open to that kind of research. In most cases, I don't want to generalize too much too, because you have also interesting research in the Western world, but less about those kind of things. Here, an example: when exposure to magnetic field values higher than those of geomagnetic field. So here you see the first line, promotion of germination. And yes, you have more complicated words, but you have the beta vulgaris as beetroot. You have increased root and leaf yield, increased chlorophyll content. So you see a directly effect on increased chlorophyll content. So that is very interesting, because then the plant will also be able to collect more light energy too. You have other plants, promotion of germination, better root length, so all kind of good effects. So there is really, that's directly a proof of hypothesis I had since 20 years or 10 years. I don't know exactly when I emit that hypothesis, that when you increase a little bit the magnetic field, then all plants will grow better. And this can also explain why in certain past times plants, animals were bigger. and why in other past times there were more little, like today. There were times where humans were also bigger, probably, animals too, and other times in history over the millions of years or thousands of years that there were bigger or more little. So it's you have a cyclus on Earth, and today we are in a cyclus where the magnetic field of the Earth is very low and becomes lower and lower. So in that logic, the agricultural yields will be lower and lower too. If we do nothing, if we just let it go, then we will have less results and problems, and we will be weaker and weaker. So that's also why today it's very important to know about that, because you can increase it with very simple techniques, like nature does with the volcanic activity. We can use the volcanic material as basalt to increase those energies locally in our gardens and fields. So it's very interesting to do. So you see that's very complicated schematic where they try to explain how the magnetic field of the Earth, you see the little image on top from that article, influences influences the chlorophyll and influences the light receiving capacity of the plants. So how it works on a chemical level. So it shows that also chemical reactions or a process in our bodies, in this plant cells, are influenced by the magnetic fields and are influenced by very weak magnetic fields, because those magnetic fields of basalt or the planet Earth is only half a Gauss. If you take a little magnet, a ferrite magnet that you have on your fridge, for example, it's already 1,000 Gauss and goes in general. And the Earth magnetic field is only half a Gauss, but has a huge influence on chemical reactions like on chlorophyll, like we saw, that is very important for life on Earth, for all plant growth and for almost all life on Earth. So from where comes basalt? Well, here you see a volcano, and what I showed with the cylinder in the middle is the magma when it comes out of the volcano. As soon as it comes out of the volcano, it will react with the oxygen and with the atmosphere, with the air in the atmosphere, and it will become lava. It's what we call lava. But as long as the magma stays in the volcano without any contact with the atmosphere, it will become hard and will become basalt. So what comes out of the volcano are ashes and lava, and what stays in the volcano becomes basalt. The rock is completely different. In most cases, like you see, what comes out is like black, or it can be also gray, but it's mostly black of color, mostly. But what's inside the volcano, when it becomes hard, it becomes like gray, also black sometimes. But when you buy basalt, it's mostly kind of gray colors. So and also a lot harder than lavas or ashes. It's very hard rock. And then it creates also geometric structures. When the magma becomes cold, slowly it becomes like a crystal. It becomes like a geometric structures, like you see on the white, in like you see on the white in a quarry, like you have all over the world. Here you see on the right again the same quarry. You see those geometric pillars or structures. There are some people also that can sometimes in some quarries you can get a pillar of basalt and then you can use it like a round tower, for example, and it works also very good. It's like a standing stone of only basalt. It can work like a round tower. So it's known that the volcanoes create very fertile land around. You have like Indonesia. It's a big country with a lot of volcanoes that is very fertile. You have a lot of countries like this. You need also water. If you need water and basalt, or water and volcanoes, and you can grow anything you want, and also heat. If you are on the North Pole or South Pole where it's too cold, you will not grow much. But if you have water, volcanoes, and heat, and a good weather, it grows very quickly. An example, I went on a volcanic island in the Indian Ocean from France. It's La Réunion, Réunion Island. It's close to Madagascar. And I went on a lava area where the volcano had a lava in 2007. And I was there in 2008 or 2009, something like this. Well, after a year or two, you had already plants growing on the rock, on the lava on that island. And after a few years, I saw other areas of lava from a few years before. It was already full of vegetation. Because when you have that energy, when you have like a crack inside the rocks and you have humidity, water, the rain stays in it, and you have a seed going in, up, it begins to grow, and the roots follow the rocks and the holes and whatever, and they grow even if there is no soil. So it shows that everything we know about soil fertility, it's very relative. If we look at that, what nature shows us, that plants grow on just rock with water and warm and light. So they just need energy in a certain way. They even don't need nutriments. You can have soil with a lot of nutriments. If you have the bad energies, it will not grow. You can have soil with very less nutriments, and you have the good energies, and it will grow like you have the best nutriments ever in your soil. So it changes completely our way of looking at fertility when we become conscious of that. When we look closely how the plants grow on a volcano, on that lava, then it changes completely our mind and the theories we learned at school about soil fertility. So we continue. An example, Justin Christophe Lowe, he didn't know about paramagnetism because he never in no article speaks about that, but he known about rocks and energy. And he showed in his book, in the first pages, an experiment he did where he just used a gravel of rocks he used a gravel of rocks as a substrate to grow his plants, to grow wheat on it. And he connected with his atmospheric antenna. and the weeds, and then he gives the water to it, just rainwater. And he had better results than in real soil with nutriments and with organic manure and whatever you want. So it shows that it's more about energy than about nutriments and things we eat or products. No, it's about really energy. Everything is about energy, frequencies, and things like that. So we continue. So how is looking basalt? Here you have two examples of basalt you can find in Europe, but you find it also in North America. You have sand on top, and you have a powder. Now, when you buy powder or you find powder, mostly it's more expensive because they take the rock and then they have to crush it to powder. So it uses energy to do that. So, but you can also buy it in sand, then it's less expensive mostly, and you have also always powder inside too, mostly. The two will have mostly good effects. To make a round tower, for example, the sand or gravel is very good. It's very useful. If you want to increase soil fertility directly by spreading the basalt, then you can use sand, but you can also use the powder. Is then also very interesting. The powder you can mix with the water also when you irrigate your plants, or when you give water to your plants, you can mix it. And also the powder, it's like you have more particles. You have more particles, so you have like more antennas. It's like you have more radio antennas or more radios in your soil than when it's a gravel. It's like you have less antennas. Even if the basalt is very paramagnetic, if it's gravel, you have less antennas than if it's powder. So with powder, in most cases, we have very, very good results on soil fertility and very quick results. But at the other side, you have also inconvenience. It's that powder, when you have a lot of rain erosion, then it will more easily go away with the rain, with the water, than sand or gravel. So you have good aspects and less good aspects, or advantages, and disadvantages. So here you see the composition of the basalt of that. That's a powder basalt you can find in Germany easily, and France. And you see that there is 44% of silicium, and also a little bit, 11% of calcium, interesting too. And also magnesium is very interesting. And then some kalium and phosphor a little bit. So that is the chemical effect. But that is not so interesting, because they did experiments where they put the basalt in little bags, in plastic bags, and then they put those little bags, they are closed, and they put it under the plants or in the soil, so the roots cannot reach the basalt, so they cannot reach those nutriments, and they grow better. They also grow better with the bags in the soil, but closed, where the roots cannot reach the basalt. So it shows that the basalt doesn't work only because of its chemical composition, but it's really a radiation from it. It's the what we called here the paramagnetic effect, or the kind of radio effect, radio from a radiation, or electromagnetic receiver and transmitter. So here I show in that drawing, that picture, a little bit how it could work. You have those little antennas in the soil that vibrates with earth magnetic energies, and that makes the plants happy. And and the snails also, and the slugs maybe also, and the earthworms that we all like. I saw really big effect on earthworm activity and earthworm earthworm quantity. There are a lot more earthworms. As soon as you will put basalt, you will see in a time of 6 months, a year, you will see really a dramatic increase in earthworm activity in your soil. And so, like everybody knows, it's earthworms really increase a lot soil fertility, and so they like really much basalt. For me, the earthworms are like the whales in the ocean. The whales eat very little plankton. The plankton eat bacteria, and the bacteria, they just come from nowhere. They eat the seawater. They just live from the minerals in the seawater, light and energy in a certain way. Well, and the end effect, you have huge whales at the end. Well, in the soil, it's little the same. You have a lot of microbiology, but that microbiology, it's living from the energies. And when you have good energies, you will have good microbiology, microorganism, and then you will have big earthworms that will eat them and also eat, and then you will have plant growth, and you will have the earthworm that will also develop. When we see plants growing better above the ground, it's also growing better under the ground. So that's also something to be conscious of, because in agriculture, they tend to make us think that when the plants grow better, it will deplete the ground, or it will reduce the fertility of the ground, and that you have to put again more fertilizers because it will impoverish the ground. No, it's the opposite. When they grow really better, the soil fertility will also grow, because you will increase a lot life in the soil, and so organic material in the soil too. And so every year the fertility will grow. So when you have more earthworm activity, I show you have then calories in the soil that will bring oxygen. And oxygen is also very paramagnetic. So oxygen will work as basalt. So it's like the more you will have air in your soil, the more it will be paramagnetic, and the more it will stimulate the good microorganism, like basalt. So you will have similar effects with basalt than with oxygen in a certain way. So that's very interesting, because sometimes you could think basalt is a very heavy rock, that it will make your soil more heavy. And it's the opposite that is true. When you will bring basalt, your soil will become more light, more, because it will increase life in the soil, and so it will increase the air in the soil, and then your soil will become more light, less weighty, and more easy to work with. So that's a very interesting aspect too. Also with the water activity, or the water. When your soil tend to dry out very quickly, when you will put basalt, it will hold the moisture a lot longer time. Your soil will stay humid a lot longer. So that's very interesting too. It's like basalt attracts the water. when you have an example, when I have a truckload of basalt in my field or somewhere discharge a truckload and it's dry, when it arrives, in a few days or maximum 2 weeks, it becomes wet until the top of the hill of the basalt. It's really attract the water from under it, and even when there were dry years like 5 months no rain, you would think the basalt will become again very dry. No. It really stays wet. You just go with your hand inside and it stays wet inside. It's really strange, but it's like that. So what we see also, it increases frost resistance. It increases the Earth magnetic field that I told already many times. And yes, it brings also a lot of different minerals in the soil, and every mineral, like Alain Reed talks about, every mineral corresponds with certain frequencies. So it's not only also the paramagnetism, it's also that every mineral corresponds with certain frequencies. And if we look at fertility in the way of for example, the pioneer George Lakhovsky speaks about his copper antennas or bracelets or Lakhovsky coil. He speaks that to make something healthy, to make a living organism healthy, you need to give him all the frequencies he needs. And then when he is lacking of certain frequencies, he will be nourished and he will be stimulated, and it will balance his all the functions in the cells that needs this or this frequency. So when we lack certain frequencies, then certain functions will not work properly. And well, we can look at rocks like basalt also as rocks that will bring certain frequencies. And in that way, you could say, if you are already living on a volcano, it doesn't need to bring some basalt. But if you live in an area where there is no paramagnetic rocks, then when you will bring some basalt, you will see huge differences. You will see huge improvements. But in reality, on volcanoes, you can also see huge improvements. Why? Because it will be less than if there is no paramagnetism at all. But there will be also improvement because of the agricultural techniques. Probably they have lost by erosion a lot of the fine paramagnetic particles at the surface of the soil. And so the basalt is also the most interesting at the surface of the soil, where you have the most alive of the soil. If you plow the field and you put the basalt again deep under, it's not, you lose a lot of the effects. So but basalt is in that way very interesting to use in organic farming and permaculture techniques, because then you try to not plow the soil or to less work the soil, and or only work very on the top of the soil, very superficial, and so and then basalt will give the most effect too, because if in a conventional farming where they use a lot of chemicals, if you use basalt, you will increase life in your soil. But if at the same time you kill life in the soil, you will lose a lot of the effect of the basalt. And if at the same time you plow and you put it completely under, deep in the ground, you also lose half of the effect. So Basalt will have a lot more effect when you respect those rules and you to have maximum effect. So to not plow and to not and to not use chemicals that kills soil life. Because if you do the opposite as the basalt, it's not really interesting. But with basalt, you can increase a lot, even in conventional farming. It will also improve the effect, but it will improve 50% less because of the opposite behaviors or way of doing. Here an example, but that's really a big difference. You will not always have that much effect, but I will explain why here you had so much effect. An example you have on beans on the below, you see 2 rows of beans on the left with very little growth, and on the right very big growth. Well, the only difference was that the right get 1 kilo square meter basalt. This was at my neighbor's place. He had a good soil and he put a lot of organic manure in his soil, really a lot. But he didn't understand, it didn't grow very well. So it was the proof that fertilizers is not the only thing that makes the plants grow. Sometimes you put a lot of fertilizers and it doesn't grow very well. Well, here that was the case. And then I had some basalt in my pyramid stored in my garden. And then I give him 1 bag of basalt and I say to him, try this out and let me know as soon as you see results. And I went a lot to his place to drink an aperitif before lunchtime, things like that in the summer. And at the end of the summer, he told me, come and look in the back of my garden. I have to show you something. And then he showed me that. And he did a test on his beans and a test on carrots, on the carrots, and you see huge difference. So here you have 2 effects. You have the effect of the basalt and the paramagnetism of the basalt, and also the effect of the pyramid, because I put the basalt in the pyramid. And it seems that basalt, it's a very good, acts as a battery. It's like it stores really the pyramid energy. I think a lot more than other rocks. It's really a rock that really stores a lot the pyramid energy. So it's an ideal rock to charge under a pyramid and then bring the pyramid energy also to your field and soil. And so every year in springtime, I put some bags of basalt in my pyramid, and then I spread some basalt with my children around all the plants we would like to help to grow. We don't put it on the weeds, we put it on our vegetables and what we like to grow. And I do this every year, and the children love that, and their energy is naturally also very good, and they love to do that. So continue. Here an example, a farmer that used a big pyramid, a copper pyramid, to energize his basalt. So that is a truckload of 5 meter on 5 meter. It looks like this. That pyramid, it's around 5 meter width, like 4 to 5 meter high. So you have also other ways to charge up the energy of the basalt. That is, with the pyramid, it's a different energy than paramagnetism. So you will have the paramagnetic effect of the basalt, and you will also have the pyramid effect if you do it like this. How to spread it? So in the application, basalt is a very hard rock. So in machinery of the farmers, we need to be careful with basalt, because if you put it in classic machinery to spread fertilizers, it will wear out some pieces of the machine very quickly. That classic fertilizers don't wear out. And so it can be expensive it can be expensive to fix again the machine then if you don't know that. So you need the best way to do it's to mix it with the compost or with organic materials that you will spread on your fields. And this for two reasons. You will not wear out your machinery, and also you will stimulate the compost, because the basalt will stimulate a lot the microorganisms. And so it's very good to do it, to mix it with the compost. Very interesting. And otherwise, you can spread it with all kind of machinery to spread fertilizers, but they have to be really strong machinery, because the basalt rock, it's very hard rock that really wears out everywhere it touches, where it scraps the metal. It really wear out very quickly the metal. It's a lot more harder than the metal. And how much? So I always advise around 1 kilo the square meter, but for in the garden. But for a farmer, it's maybe a way too much. If you look at the price also of the basalt, it can be too expensive, or it can be. So then I advise minimum 100 grams square meter, and that corresponds with 1 ton per hectare. So it's 1 ton or 1,000 kilos for 2.5 acres. And then you can already see some result. But the more you will put, like up to 1 kilo square meter, the more you will see results. If your soil never had basalt in past times, then you have more chance to see more results after one treatment than if you already give some. So it can make a huge difference when you will give basalt. The results will also increase with time, because it needs time to stimulate life in your soil, microorganism. This will take time. And also you need humidity. If you put it at the end of springtime and it's very dry, and it stays very dry, it doesn't rain the whole summer, then you will have less effect after the season than if it still rains and then it mixed with the soil, and life will be stimulated a lot than if it stays dry. It's quite logic, but we need to know that, because if a farmer just put it and it doesn't rain after, then he can be disappointed the first season, because he will not see much results. So the best season to spread it is like in autumn, because then you have all that organic material left over on your soil. You put basalt, it will mix naturally with earthworm activity and soil life the whole winter and the whole autumn and springtime, and then you will see really more results the first year. But it's never too late to spread basalt. Even if it's in the summer, you can always spread basalt. Every day that you didn't spread it, it's a day you have lost. it's always interesting to spread it. Now you will have also plants that will love it more than others. That's logic too. There are plants adapted to very hard conditions, like in the desert, and don't like very fertile soil, and other plants like a lot of fertile soil, like the most of our vegetables in our gardens really like more fertility in the soil, so it's not a problem for them. So they will grow mostly a lot better. So here an example of spreaders that you can use for basalt, but being conscious that the disc that rotates on the bottom will wear out very quickly. Yes, just to know. You can also use basalt to energize the water. You take a tube like this, like you see on the drawing. It's as simple as that. You make like two grills or rasters or grills, I don't know the name in English, and you put the rocks in between, and then the water will flow through the rocks like it will. You can imagine it's like a wild river on the volcano, like on the volcano mountain, and you have all kind of vortex between the rocks when the water flow, and also the magnetic energy of the basalt. So it's like a natural way of magnetizing the water too. You don't need really magnets, you just use basalt. It's even better than magnets because you will really use the earth magnetic energy. It's the best you can have. When we put magnets, it's when we want to imitate the earth magnetic energy in a certain way. So it will not be better with magnets than with basalt, with paramagnetic basalt. I will show you a picture of a result like this. This was a guy in Mexico. He didn't have much money, but he saw my posts on my groups, on my social network groups, and then he was thinking, I will do like Yannick advised. I will put some rocks in the tube and I will see what happens. And you see his mint on the left is with the water, normal water, and on the right is the mint, the leaves with the water energized through his tube. But above it, he put also some magnets, but I think he would not need to do that. But in the tube, he have put a lot of volcanic rock. So it's very easy to do. And that every farmer can do. It's quite easy to make. You take a tube and you put rocks inside and you make the water flowing through it. So it's very simple, cheap. And that's also why you will not hear that kind of advice with classic farmers consultants, because of our economy, our rules of economy, like capitalism and whatever, everything is made that everybody needs to earn a lot of money to survive. And so they don't give advice that doesn't make them earn money. And so nobody will tell you. You have to learn by yourself in books or through that kind of presentation. But companies will sell you a lot of devices to energize your water because they need to survive. So they need to pay the visit to you to sell you something, the transport, everything. So they need to sell magnets or whatever, what you can do with local materials. I sell also things. It's not a problem to sell things, but it's just to understand how our economy, how our society evolved to all techniques that makes us dependent to the economy and each other, and not to natural solutions. It's because natural solutions are quite free and doesn't pay advisors. So the advisors need to be paid, and our governments or schools are also financed by companies mostly, and so or the research in the institutions, and so we don't learn about those simple techniques. Yeah, that's a pity, but it's like this. And so we need to change that and to have a more fair society where we really exchange real knowledge. And in that way, internet helps us a lot, and all the social networks and talking to each other, exchanging each other our testimonials, because it's through our own testimonials that we exchange to help each other that we will learn the most. That's really true knowledge, really true knowledge and true observations. Like really the beginning of science, it's observation, and that's what we do in our gardens at the final point. Here you see examples. The schematic is in French, but you just look at the images and you will understand. To explain what is paramagnetism, ferromagnetism, and diamagnetism. Well, ferromagnetism is when you have a piece of iron and you touch a magnet, or you are close to a magnetic field of a magnet. Then the piece of iron will become magnetic itself. It will orient itself in the magnetic field, and it will be attracted to the poles of the magnetic field. And when you will take away the original magnet from the pieces of iron that have become magnetized, then the pieces will stay magnetized for a long time. So they will become like magnets and they will stay magnetized. So that's what we call ferromagnetism. And paramagnetism, in comparison, it's very similar, but a little bit different. So when you put in a magnetic field of a magnet, of a static magnet, the particles will also orient in the magnetic field of the magnet. It will also be attracted by the poles of the magnet, and they will also become like a magnet or behave as a magnet as long as they are in the magnetic field of the original magnet. But when you will take away the original source of the magnetism, so the original magnet, then the particles will lose their magnetism instantly and become again neutral. So that's the big difference with ferromagnetism, that the paramagnetic particles will lose their magnetism as soon as you take away the source of the magnetism. So it's like you have the paramagnetic particles of basalt. If you would take away the Earth magnetic field, it will not be magnetic. The particles will not be magnetic. But the iron particles or ferromagnetic particles, they will stay magnetic. You see? That's the whole difference. And that's also probably why ferromagnetic particles or iron tools are not so good also to use. That's my hypothesis. It's because when you have a machine, for example, that is made of iron, and it stays like a month in the corner of your farm in a certain orientation, it will magnetize in a certain way with the Earth magnetic field in the same orientation. But it will stay magnetized, and then you will move around with that machine. It's like you will you will disturb all the magnetic fields around. It's like you take a magnet and you put on your hard disk of your computer, you move it, you will erase all the memory of your hard disk or of your cassette or USB stick or whatever, because you will disturb all the crystals and the electrical fields and magnetic fields inside, and you can make a disruption or even break electronics with magnetic fields. But if you consider that life is closely influenced by very subtle magnetic fields, when you will move with magnets around, like with iron tools, you will also disturb life in a certain way, or life energy. And then life will need some time to recover of the loss of energy that you don't have with copper tools. With copper tools, you will not have that problem because it's not ferromagnetic. That's one hypothesis. Then you have the other aspect is diamagnetism. That's like the water molecule. Water is diamagnetic. So when you put close to a magnetic field of a magnet, it will be repulsed, or it will stay neutral. It will not be sensitive to the magnetic field, or it will go in the opposite way. And when you take away again the original source of the magnetic field, it's again neutral, or it stays neutral. So it's like you have no effect. Here I speak about a static magnetic field. I don't speak about magnetic fields that moves like electromagnetic fields from the phones or from artificial sources like this. It's different. Those magnetic fields are like fluctuated, or I don't know how they call it in English, but they are moving magnetic fields. It's different. Water can also be programmed with certain frequencies with moving magnetic fields, but it's a whole different aspect, a whole different characteristic. It's different. And life, organic matter, is diamagnetic most cases, and most rocks are diamagnetic. You have only the volcanic rocks that are paramagnetic, and some are more than others. So, and water is diamagnetic, but water is also very important for fertility, but for other functions, other things. But for life, if we look at the hypothesis of Phil Callahan, we need the two forces. We need a diamagnetic force, so life, living organisms, and the paramagnetic force to create life in a certain way. But it's just a hypothesis. But we see that paramagnetic forces really influence a lot the development of life. Just to show the drawing, to show the layers of the planet Earth. So the volcanoes will bring material or molten rocks or material, or it changes the way, the characteristics of the rocks in a certain way to make it become paramagnetic. It's quite mysterious and brings it to our surface, Earth surface. There are theories that the Earth is growing in size too, but I don't know, over time, maybe not, I don't know. Yeah, we go further. Here, that's a device invented or developed with the help of Phil Callahan. and an electronic company. Now it's not made anymore, but it was a long time distributed by Pike AgriLab Supplies in the US. And they call it the Phil Callahan Soil Meter, or PCSM. And you see the table on the device where it's written, when you measure between 0 and 100, then it's poor soil. You can take samples of your soil, like of 25 grams of soil or rock or whatever, and then you measure this in those little plastic bottles or bags, and most soils that I measure, I have that device. Most soils that I measure all around or between 0 and 100. So they are mostly poor soils. He wants to say with that if you don't do anything, then you will have poor results, not much yields, and so on. And when you have like between 300 and 700, then he call it very good soil. That means that even if you do almost nothing special to your soil, the plants will already grow quite well, and you will have already good results, even if you don't put fertilizers and things. You will have like a natural characteristic of the soil to be very fertile. And on a volcano, it can be like between 700 and 1,200, and then it's very superior soil. Then you really don't need fertilizers. It's a waste of money because it already gives very good results. You have like this soils also in North America. You have soils close to Alaska and close to the sea. You have an area with a lot of vegetable gardens or vegetable growers where they have huge vegetables, and those grow up on sand of volcanic rock. So it's not by hazard. They don't know it's because of that, but it's because probably of the very high paramagnetic effects, and also the influence of the sea with all the minerals and negative ions and a lot of good effects of the sea too. But it's not everywhere close to the sea that plants grow well. So it's also because the soil is very special there. You can find that on YouTube. There are examples of those places. Or people, maybe if in Canada, people are living in the West Coast, maybe they know about this. And so he tells on that schematic, on that table, that if you want to improve your soil to those values, you can take, he marked good rock dust that is between 1,200 and 3,000 micro CGS values. So as soon as it's above 1,200, he called it good rock dust to improve the soil. So now you have also sometimes rock dust or sand that is even above, that is around 5,000 or 9,000 micro CGS, but it's more rare to encounter that. In most cases, you will find more easily around 2,000-3,000. If it's 3,000, you will need only a lot less quantity than if you find rock dust of 1,200. You will need 2 times more of that rock dust to have the same paramagnetic effect than with the one of 3,000, for example. So that's also interesting to consider, because the higher you will find a rock dust with higher paramagnetism, you will probably have more effects. Now, it's not always like this. In reality, we observe that sometimes we have even better effects with some rock dust that is less paramagnetic than other rock dust that is higher, because probably there are also some mysterious mysteries we don't understand. We don't understand everything. But it gives you an idea. It gives you an idea. Even Phil Callahan also don't. Yes, he also done everything, but he has a lot of hypotheses and explanations that he tried to explain in his books, but it's still a mystery how it works. And then, like Pika Guilab stops to make it, I begin to make also devices like this. I copied the device and I improved it. I did pack engineering, like you could say it. So I improved the device in a way that it's more strongly made. The principle, the working principle of the electronics behind is the same, but I make it with a stronger case and everything because it was needed to be stronger for agricultural application. Now, for gardener, it's not interesting to buy a device like this. It can be interesting for consultants if people work to sell basalt and to try to find the best basalt, or big farmers that want to really follow up their soils and to choose good basalts, because electronics is directly quite expensive to make. But if you have samples of basalt, there is already one of your group that sent me some samples of quite good basalt. It was around 5,000 micro CGS, what is very, very good. It's excellent. So you can use that basalt to make to improve your soil, or to make round towers too, or other materials of electroculture. But if you have other sources of basalt, you can, if you are a customer or participating to the course, you can send me samples, and you write really in detail from where it is, because I don't measure things I don't know from where it is. Then I don't measure. You can also, so I need to know from where it is. The most details as possible, and then I can measure it for you, and then it helps also everybody to know where they can find good basalt in their area. Because you can find almost basalt or volcanic rocks almost everywhere, in garden centers or in those kind of shops, but you will not know about how much is it paramagnetic, because they don't measure it, because they don't know about it. So if you want to know, you just buy a little bit of it, and you send me sample, and I will measure it for you. Now, if I have 100 samples, then I will not do it for free anymore. But but that's why I do it only for the course. Otherwise, I ask some fee for it to measure. And if you have measured it one time, you know it for always, so you don't need to measure it again. It will not change over time. So here you see yes, basalt in front of my house. that I use to make all the round towers and also to spread in my garden and fields. The device, yeah. Here, that's a little experiment I did on beans. I just put a basalt stones, a gravel. I put some terracotta pot inside where I put the water to make the gravel humid. And then I planted beans. And you see they grow like they were in the real soil. And there is no soil. I took the basalt stones and I washed them like 5 to 10 times in clear water, so that you don't have any powder on the basalt. And then I connected also to an atmospheric antenna. That's why you see a little wire in the back of one terracotta pot. And they grow really quite well. I had really beans, normal beans that I could yield on the plants. So it's again a little experiment everybody can do that will completely disturb all agronomists about soil fertility and the importance of soil. I don't say soil is not important, but it's just that it can make us think how fertility works. It's not exactly how we think it works. So here you see the beans. So they could be better and greener, but they growed and they had beans all over. It was just difficult to hold the gravel humid in summer, because I would like to find ways to hold the gravel humid all summer long to do experiments, because if it's dry out, it dry very quickly out. Every day I needed to give water to the beans. Here an example how you can increase life force also of a tree. You can spread the basalt all over, but if you put it in a circle like this, it's even better. We observed that the energy of the tree, that it helps a lot more the energy of the tree by doing like this, by putting the basalt in a circle. I did that on a tree in front of my house where there was a disease every year. And I've put basalt all around, and I still had the disease, but less, a lot less. But I still had the disease on the leaves. It was, I don't know exactly the name, but it was a kind of disease. And then a guy went to my course, and he did some experiments in his home and in his garden, and he told me that it worked even a lot better like this. And then I tried this out on my tree, and really it worked very well, because since I did that, there is no disease anymore on that tree. And I saw really the effect before and after. The year I did that, I had no disease anymore. And now it's already since 3 or 5 years like this. There's no disease anymore on my tree. And during years before, there was always the same disease on the tree. So really it works very well. It's quite mysterious why it worked better like this than when you spread it all over. Maybe it's a similar effect as with the atmospheric antenna that is here represented by the tree, and then you have the fence around. Maybe you have a kind of effect like this, maybe, that it creates like also a kind of electrical field that will improve the effect. But we see that it really works very well like this. So here another picture of it. So this was a kind of fruit tree in a garden of a friend. Here you see again in my garden, but I have also other techniques in the garden. But on the mint was only influenced by my round towers and the basalt that I spread all over. So you can use basalt for the round towers also that I spoke about in a presentation. So when you make round towers, we fill it complete with basalt. And you can also use basalt to mix it with sand. Yes. To mix it with sand and cement to make little round towers or objects. Or you can make little stones if you have sand or powder, and to give around your plants, or directly use stones of basalt too. Yeah. Here you see a list of different materials and their paramagnetism. So basalt, it's in French, but you can recognize basalt in the first lines. Is between 100 and 15,000 micro-CGS. So micro-CGS is what is the abbreviation of microcentimeters, grams per second. It's like the speed that the particles will go through a certain magnetic field or through a pole of a magnet. So it's microcentimeters gram per second. So oxygen, it's like 3,400 micro-CGS, what is quite high, like a lot of basalt. Basalt are between mostly 100 and 15,000. So now the most basalt you will find, it's around 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 micro-CGS. And exceptionally, you can find with higher values. Lavas and volcanic ashes are between 0 and 5,000. So there, if you use ashes or lava by hazard, what you find, you have a chance that it's paramagnetic, but you have also a chance that it's not. So it's not all lavas are paramagnetic, but if they are, it's very interesting too. And then you have all other atoms like aluminium, sodium, calcium. It's not paramagnetic or very less. And organic tissues is like a wood or cells or between 0 and 20, quite very. It's not paramagnetic. It's only the oxygen that is paramagnetic. And water, it's even negative paramagnetic. It's diamagnetic. It's the opposite. Copper, only a little bit. So the most metals are not paramagnetic. But iron is ferromagnetic. So the problem with devices like the one of Phil Callahan is that it doesn't distinguish the ferromagnetism from the paramagnetism. So it can give a false ID. When you measure basalt or lava with a high iron content, then you will measure also the ferromagnetism. So the value you will measure on the device will be the addition of ferromagnetism and paramagnetism. So it's always interesting also to look for basalt with very low iron content. If it's very high paramagnetic and very low iron content, then you have the best of the best of the basalt. But in most cases, you have also some iron, but it's not so bad too. So we'll continue. We are quite at the end. So I've made a book in December last year about basalt and paramagnetism. You find on my internet site in French for the moment. It will be on Amazon in future times, in the next weeks. I have still the translation. I just make the layout now, and it will be put also on my internet site in the next weeks and on Amazon. So about basalt, and you will find in future times also about the other subjects of electroculture. So that's my first book about electroculture. It's about basalt. So very interesting. Here you see my internet site. If you want some basalt, I sell also, but I advise, if you are far away, to buy locally the basalt, because it's very heavy weight, so it costs a lot for transport. But you can find almost all over the world. And the books of Phil Callahan that I advise that are all in English. So you are lucky, because in France they don't have those books about so sometimes the English speaking world is also lucky about electroculture with the books of Phil Callahan. That is also really a pioneer and reference that inspires us a lot with his insights, knowledge, and ideas for electroculture. I would say you have like three big pioneers that inspires me the most is Phil Callahan, George Lakowski, and Justin Christoflo. That are really the three big pioneers for electroculture for the passive electroculture techniques with the natural energies. So that's their subjects. So thank you very much. I hope it was eye-opening, interesting, and I didn't. There's something, a little information I forgot to tell you that is also very interesting. It's basalt. Also increases the biophoton activity of living organisms, and also basalt sends out photons, light photons, biophotons we call it, in the soil, and the roots of the plants acts like fiber optics. They are like antennas of light. And that's the research of Phil Callahan with Fritz Albert Popp, that was an expert in biophotonic research in living organisms. And he says, he shows with his devices, with his research, that all living organisms emit biophotons, emits lights, but it's very weak intensity light that you need special devices to measure it. And but what is interesting, when basalt, when Phil Callahan went with some basalt samples to meet Fritz Albert Popp in Germany, probably he has his laboratory in Germany, then Fritz Albert Popp told him, rocks doesn't emit really light. I don't think we will see anything with your rock. He didn't know about paramagnetism and about the energy of rocks, Fritz Albert Popp. But he did also very advanced alternative research. That is, and then he gave a basalt rock to Fritz Albert Popp, and he measured, and he was really amazed to see that basalt rock emits biophotons like living organisms. So it's really strange. And what is even more strange, then he put he measured the biophoton activity of a compost sample, so of compost. And when he put the basalt mixed with the compost, then it increased the biophotonic activity of the compost, of the microorganism in the compost, by hundreds. So it's like multiplied by 100. It was really, and that is also why I tell that it's very interesting to spread and mix the basalt with the compost in agriculture or in your garden. It's really where you have the life that it will increase. It's like you bring compost to your soil, but you have already like compost at the surface of your soil. But when you will bring basalt, you will boost really the living energy of the compost. It's like you will boost, like you could call the life force energy or organ energy. It's really about living energies that we are speaking. It's not about nutriments and everything. It's really you will increase the life, and that's what we see in our gardens. It's when we do electroculture, we really increase life force. Everything become more living, shiny. When we say that living organism or plants are shiny, we are really, in reality speaking, about they emit light. they really feel that they emit energy. So that's really life. It's not that we are really emitting energy too. And the more we emit, it's the more we are healthy, the more we have charisma, the more we have energy, and the more we emit good energies. We are not robots or transhuman beings or zombies. No, we are really light emitting bodies, and we eat light emitting fruit and vegetables with a lot of life energy. And that's the whole difference. It's above, it's even more profound than just organic food. It's really living energy food. So thank you very much to all. And so voila, I hope it was interesting for you. And there's still much to say, but I wanted to tell you about that biophoton research, because that brings us to a whole new dimension also, and world of the living energies. Thank you.